This video is sponsored by absolutely nobody. Let's go. Hello everyone, ScotsWizard here, and I love children's stories. Kipper the dog, Narnia, Utterly Utterlies, and need I even mention the great and wonderful, glorious Dr. Seuss. Oh, but you need to, you need to do that, and then read Tough Princess. This book is a classic. It's hilarious. I used to go to the library all the time to read this, and it's just hilarious. And loved it. The ending always cracks me up. So let's read it, why don't we? The Tough Princess, written by Martin Waddle, and illustrated by Patrick Benson. Once upon a time, there lived a king and queen who weren't very good at it. They kept losing wars and mucking things up. They ended up living in a caravan parked beside a deep, dark wood. The king is the one with the frying pan. The queen is the one with the hammer trying to fix the roof. One day, the queen told the king that she was going to have a baby.
Wow! Their rule as king and queen was so bad that they literally went to living in a caravan in the middle of the woods? Talk about hiding away from trouble. It makes you wonder what their kingdom used to be like. What led them to be living in a caravan in the middle of the woods?
Have a boy, commanded the king. He will grow up to be a hero, marry a rich princess, and restore all of our fortunes. Oh, good idea, said the queen. But when the baby came, it was a girl.
Looking at the illustration again, I like how the king and queen are the only ones smiling in their thoughts. I also like this funny expression that the king gives when it says, "but when the baby came," as he's knitting. That's the sort of face I would make. Watch.
Ah, never mind. She will grow up to be a beautiful princess. I will annoy a bad fairy and get the princess into bother. And then a handsome prince will rescue her, and we'll all go off and live in a castle. Good thinking, said the queen. We'll call her Rosamund. Bah, said Rosamund.
Well, judging by that bow and arrow, we can tell that she's no ordinary little girl. She's in fact Merida, wearing a brown wig to somehow hide her enormous ginger hair. Now the king looks like that king from Gallivant. Hilarious musical show, by the way. Go watch it.
The princess grew up and up and up and up, until at last there wasn't room in the caravan to hold her. The king got her a tent and pitched it outside. It's time you were married, Rosamund, the king told the princess on her 17th birthday. Yes, Dad, said the princess, but I'll go off and arrange it, said the king. The king went off into the deep, dark wood to annoy some bad fairies. The first fairy the king met was no use. She was a good one. She didn't even get angry when the king called her names. The second fairy was bad, but she was only a beginner. That's how bad she was at being bad.
The use of the word bad in this page makes for a hilarious double meaning.
She turned the king into a frog for making faces at her cat, but the spell eventually wore off. Got better. The third fairy was very bad. This is her. The king was awfully rude to her.
Aha! Cried the bad fairy. What do you love most in this world?
My daughter Rosamund, cried the king hopefully.
I will cast a spell on her,
cackled the bad fairy, who wasn't very bright, and she... Goody, cried the king, because his get the princess a rich prince plan was working. The bad fairy came across Princess Rosamund, picking buttercups in a glade.
Aha! She cried. I am the bad fairy, come to cast a spell on you. 7 years shall you lie till a prince comes riding by.
Biff! Went Princess Rosamund, and she knocked the bad fairy out, bent her false teeth, and bust up her glasses.
And already I'm laughing hysterically just by looking at that picture. It's funny because, first of all, she's getting the better of the witch who was about to curse her. And secondly, look at that smile! Look how she just gleefully punches her in the face!
You rotten, ungrateful thing, Rosamund, said the queen, picking up the bad fairy. I'll catch my prince my own way, said Princess Rosamund. The next day she borrowed the king's bike and rode off to seek her prince.
Little dice on the bikes.
Rosamund had lots of adventures. She slew dragons and great worms and black knights.
All right, we'll call it a draw.
She rescued several princes who weren't quite rich, but she didn't really like them, so she threw them back. She did all the things a hero ought to do, but she didn't catch her prince. Princess Rosamund grew tired of rescuing princes and killing dragons. It's not always easy being a dragon-slaying maniac from Skyrim.
and her front wheel got buckled in a fight with a 100-headed thing. In the end, she set off sadly for home, carrying her bicycle. "Hello, Mum. Hello, Dad. Hello, Bad Fairy," said Princess Rosamond when she got home. "Where's your prince, then?" said the King and the Queen and the Bad Fairy, who had moved in by this time. I love how the King and Queen were willing to let the Bad Fairy just move into their home. I know they're being nice people to her and that she probably is still recovering from that biff in the face, and the King and Queen presumably make some good sausages from what we've seen earlier, but are they really that desperate to use a Bad Fairy to literally let her stay in their home? That's like if the King and Queen from Sleeping Beauty were willing for Maleficent to curse the child the whole time in a plan to get the prince's attention. That would make for a whole new story altogether. And lots of theories for clickbaiting. "I haven't got one," said Princess Rosamond. "I'm not going to marry a ninny." "What about us?" cried the King and the Queen and the Bad Fairy. "What are we supposed to do to live on if you can't come up with a prince?"
But I don't like her. Don't like her? What's wrong with her?
"That's your problem," said Princess Rosamond. "I'm not going to." And then she saw the sign. "I'm doing this for me," said Rosamond firmly, and so she set off into the deep dark woods. "You can look after yourself. You lot can look after yourselves." She passed up several goblins and ghouls and the odd fairy, including several good fairies by mistake.
"And remember, follow the yellow brick." Oh!
Did you just throw a yellow brick at me? And finally she won through to the enchanted castle. On a flower-strewn bed in the castle lay a beautiful prince.
Well, you see, the thing is, I thought your son was a lady.
Rosamond gave him a big, smacky kiss. The beautiful prince opened his eyes and took a look at Princess Rosamond. "Oh, what a liberty!" he cried, and he biffed her one right in her beautiful nose, and Rosamond biffed him one right back. It was love at first biff. They biffed happily ever after. The king and queen. Sorry. Sorry, they biffed happily ever after. I could just imagine they were just beating each other up in romantic restaurants. And then maybe during the wedding, you may now biff the bride. You may now biff the husband and then a big fight in the wedding hall. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that ending just cracks me up. And the fact that the two of them don't really mind this, it just cracks me up. Sorry. Anyway, the king and the queen lived happily ever after too, and the bad fairy got even worse. So there you have it, The Tough Princess. I'd highly recommend it to any child out there. It's hilarious, it's got really fun illustrations, it's just a fun story, and one that I always loved reading in the library. It even says at the back here, breaks all the conventions of the traditional fairy tale, and is all the more fun for that. Spirited and energetic, colourful pictures, and further humour to this highly enjoyable story from Child Education. And Valerie Behrman from The Scotsman says, a hilarious romp. And it's apparently £4.50 in the UK only. So for those of you who live in America, blame it on your leader, I don't know. And when you look deeper into it, I suppose this is a really good story about feminism. Really think about this. This isn't a typical damsel in distress story with the male hunky prince rescuing the princess waiting. No, they switch it the other way around. This time it's the beautiful princess doing all the awesome action and rescuing the prince. It just goes to show that women can do just as much as men can. Besides, have you seen some of the women in the Olympics? So I hope you enjoyed this story, and children, if you were watching this, I hope you enjoyed the story too. ScotsWizard signing out.